this stream is my curiosity into the future of HEX in terms of what the price will be, because we all know T shares go up and to the right. We'll get to why T shares are deflationary and supply of HEX is inflationary. But the curious thing I don't understand is how the fuck it's not at zero. Because if you look at it, it's almost like there's two forces cancelling each other out. But because the T-share rate decreases and the supply constantly goes up and to the right, I'm not sure if that's enough ratcheting it up, and I'll explain why. Now, what you can see on screen here right now, I'm not sure if there's comments because I haven't put that function on yet, but so if anyone's in there, thank you. If you look at the T-share, right, so this is the first thing I would look at. I just wrote some simple notes and I've been thinking about it. What am I trying to say? So this is with two individuals, right? Not including other individuals, not including other OA or anything. So if you have person A, person B, so that's what A and B represents. Now, if you have a starting point, which is, A and B have the same starting point, and they have the same ending point. So A has one stack. Doesn't matter in this example how much it is, HEX terms, USD terms, all that matters is one stack for A, one stack for B. They're burning their HEX, getting T shares, exactly the exact same rate, I would assume. Again, there's some maths behind this, and I really want to see the maths because it's fascinating how it keeps going up and to the right. It's almost as if you can inject small amounts in and get more and more HEX forever. So anyway. So as a result of this first, where is it? I haven't even got a pointer. As a result of the first line, A to B, what you'll see is basically, in that instance, what would price do, right? What would price do? Well, price should, hang on. Oh my God, really? It's not going to let me do it? It's like letting me click on everything but what I want to click on. Hang on, what if I do this? Oh my God, seriously, OBS? Strange. They're gonna let me do it. How the fuck you not gonna let me do it? Hang on. Here we go. Alright. Sorry about that. First stack, A to B. People ending A to B, right? Here's some logic behind it. It makes sense. Again, not taking into account liquidity pools and other factors just yet. So if you have price and we're trying to figure out what it's going to do, if you have A and B ending at the same time, just two players in the whole system, that's it. A sells, I've got S for sell, P for price, A is the individual 1, B is the individual 2, whatever. So if A sells, price should go down. B sells, price should go down. A and B sell at the same time, price should go down. Now, here we have another example. I'd like to zoom out so you can see it all as a whole, but you just have to try and follow my insanity. Now, we have a second instance, a second scenario, a second example. Two individuals, one stack each. We have a starting point. A and B have the same starting point. Now, they're like burning, getting T shares. Now, we know that if A ends before B, or vice versa, then A, once the end, will then have no T shares, right? And it would need more capital to be able to get the same amount of T shares as B to catch up to them, right? Again, there's some maths behind that, but what I'm saying here is, if for price-wise, price action, if A sells, price should go down. If B sells, price should go down. Now, that's also not taking into account how much they're selling. If they sell even this like 1 hex, then the price theoretically should go down. If they sell the whole stack, theoretically price should go down. Same too with B. But I just wanted to point out there that we understand how T-shares act and function, right? So we understand that when we've been watching it play out, that if A has this no T-shares, right, and they want to then get the same amount of T-shares, they need more capital. That's what I was trying to say. Or the other option is, if you scroll down, if I scroll down up rather, the other option, excuse me, making like a squeak noise. The other option is they need to push it out further. So we have here. Now, if, for instance, A and B start a stake together, right? And I can't even read my own handwriting. A ends, right, before B. Now, they're going to need more capital or they're going to stake longer. So A1 would represent them staking longer to obtain the same amount of T-shares that B has. Or they would need more capital, and more capital injected into A to end a stake at B to be able to have the same amount of T-shares, right? And the thing is, this is the funny thing. If A sells at position end stake A, price should go down. If B sells when they, at stake end, price should go down. However, if A doesn't sell at that point in time and they restake, price should remain neutral, right? Anyway, so I put like plus and negative plus, I don't know why, for neutral. And that is if A doesn't include if A injects more capital, because if A injects more capital, theoretically price should go up before B ends, which could be beneficial to B, but also could be beneficial to A depending on what B does. It's an amazing system. Now, if, for instance, it gets to A stake ends, they don't sell, they restake, they don't even skim, they don't even sell 1 hex, the price would remain neutral. So I have therefore more hex if, basically what I said before, more hex. Therefore, if A sells, price decreases, unless entire stake. So yeah, if A ends, then stakes, no change of price. If A ends, then sells, any price should decrease, right? That's what I'm saying. It's fascinating how the system's been going because it's still not at zero, which is what everyone maybe thought this would happen. However, we'll move on now. Again, hopefully you can understand my ramblings. Hopefully my screen will actually pick up what I'm trying to pick up. Oh my god. Now, where am I? Here. Okay. So keeping in mind that 2 individuals in this system, not including anyone else, basically 1 stack, right? As T-shares decrease, less overall new hex exists. So because T-shares are deflationary over time. Now, what I'm trying to say is, because you have the same amount of hex, and then you sell, you have the same amount of hex, right? I could be getting this wrong, just bear with me. You have the same amount of hex, and then you end your stake, theoretically. Then the same amount of hex, if you stake it for the same amount of time, you're going to get less T-shares. And it gets to the point where even if you inject more capital over time, you will still get less and less T-shares. Therefore, T-shares are theoretically deflationary overall. So as T-shares decrease, I've put less overall new hex exists, because hex is inflationary, and as the T-shares mint new hex, that's how they exist. That's where we see the inflation. As hex increases, as more is minted. And minting hex, I guess you could call it a function of T-share, a T-share, a fraction of a T-share, a B-share even. So sorry, that was kind of not as clear as I want it to be, but just keeping that in mind. Now, if you have a look at this line here, so this is where it's both inflationary and deflationary at the same time. So if you have two players, A and B, same amount of HEX, A ends their stake and say they sell some, right? So then price would go down. So you can see the line underneath. It's sort of like almost like a lightning bolt up and to the right. So A ends a stake. Say they sell some, it would affect price. It would go down slightly. However, B is still staked and more HEX is being produced. So the price of HEX, the supply would keep increasing, right? Mind you, the supply line always goes up and to the right with T shares. But if it was representative of price, it could look like that in theory. This is what I was trying to figure out. How is price functioning? If A stakes out further and then they sell a little bit, then it drops the amount, but then it's still increasing in supply overall. This is what I'm saying. It's almost like the two forces are cancelling each other out, but because HEX supply keeps increasing, I'll get to why I think maybe price is increasing next. But yeah, if you can visually imagine that, A or B ends a stake, they sell, price goes down, it would potentially make the price do that, dip down a bit, then increase over time with supply. But again, that's two different things I've sort of molded into one there. Again, you can see all of this on chain. This is actually what's taking place. This is why HEX is the cleanest cryptocurrency out there. Now, again, there's mathematics behind this as well. I'm not even touching that because I'm not even sure where to look at that. But you see here, HEX T shares, supply, and over time. This is what happens to the T shares, from my understanding. I could be wrong. T shares, deflationary. Over time, T shares decrease. So what does that mean? If T shares are decreasing over time, it becomes harder and harder to get more HEX. And then I'll get to how that could play out, because it's not really early days, but it's early-ish days relative to Bitcoin, which is 15 years old now. HEX is 4. So we have here, if we look, and again, we can look at this on chain, my little eyeballs. Price, therefore, as HEX supply increases, right? T shares decrease. So over time, we're seeing more and more HEX. It's worth checking out hexfi.io. You can see the amount of stake locked. You can see the amount of HEX locked. You can see the total supply. And you can try and visualize what is going on in the system. Now, this is the interesting part as well. I'm trying to think about. If HEX supply is constantly increasing and T shares are constantly decreasing, they might be doing so at different rates. But if it's just weird, if you have a ratcheting up effect, I'm thinking, is it even possible to be selling upwards? Like, if you had $1,000, right? You start off with $1,000 in HEX terms. US dollars terms. You transfer that over to HEX, and you have units in HEX equaling $1,000. Over time, what you are seeing is at the end of, and you're staking, you're locking away, burning, getting T shares. What you're seeing over time is at the end of that, you have more HEX, and you are seeing, as long as you didn't do it from the all-time high, but mostly, for the most part, you are seeing $1,000 injected into the system is producing a yield that is positive. And the yield that is positive is also more units. And as the units are increasing, you can see the squares as they're increasing up, and like the overall square is getting larger, right? It's almost getting squared. Lol, pun intended. So if it's increasing, right, then when you're selling say you want to sell your initial $1,000, for example, it is most likely you're still going to have more left over, hence the growth, the inflation. So it's inflating in supply, giving you the ability to sell while T shares are deflationary. It's a mind fuck. Again, I want to see the actual maths behind this. It would be pretty, I would imagine, complex. You could just jump to on-chain data and see it play out in real time because it's because people are dumping and selling, but there's more to it than that, I think. Now, go on to the next one. This one here. So, I guess I call this one events on price, right? What are we going to see? What could play out that would really affect the price? Because we're seeing the price. If you're watching the price every day, is it doing much? I mean, it's doing a little bit, and then you do see some larger buyers which are moving the price upwards quickly, and maybe downwards. But lately, we've seen some impressive moves up. But overall, I think the real long-term effects on price are going to be one of these three things could play out. I actually think it's more likely that a combination of the two are going to play out because of the way the system is designed. And as I said before, it's almost as if you're injecting small amounts of HEX in. It's growing. It's if you go back to this one, it's growing, and then somehow the supply increases, right? Which sounds bad, but at the same time, T-shares are decreasing. T-shares are the things that are producing more of the HEX. As that's decreasing, it's almost, like I said, it's almost as if the two forces are cancelling each other out. But there's enough, there's enough upward pressure somehow to make the price slowly creep up as the T-share rate, increases, but at the same time gets decreased. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. It's a mind fuck, like I said. Now, events on price, like large events. So T-share scarcity, I would say, could be something that triggers everyone in the system to realize what is actually going on. Not just extremely large holders, but even smaller holders, because it could get to the time, and then we won't actually feel it, because as you age, it's not like you just wake up one day. Like every day that you're alive, like I don't sit here and go, I just aged 1 second. Oh, I feel fucking shit now. Sorry, language. But it's not until, 20 years pass or 15 years pass, and you go, God damn it, I aged 15 years. What the hell happened? You reassess your life or something, or what have I achieved, or where am I sitting financially, or whatever. So this is what I'm talking about when I say events on price. The T-share scarcity will become apparent to us all, to everyone, especially if you're new to HEX. You will realize that it's more difficult to purchase a T-share miner. Now, with something like Bitcoin, it's because you're not in, or most people aren't investing in huge farms. They're probably not noticing. The growth from an EXC, which was free, and electricity was negligible, the amount I was paying, versus now I've got some thumbnails. It's making my computer work a little bit harder. It's kind of sucky, and then it's like now it's to the point you need all these entire giant farms, and like they need to be cooled in fucking Iceland or some shit, or like Antarctica, because it's producing that much heat. Or you need anyway. And that is becoming more difficult. However, you look at Ethereum, and it's I'm not even sure what's going on over there, so I probably shouldn't speak to it. But they've changed from what miners to basically proof of stake, and they're locking up. Well, we've heard that before. Anyway, Pulse chain, you don't need to do all that shit, right? Anyway, but the T-share scarcity within HEX here, not other systems. The T-share it exists on Ethereum and Pulse chain and ETHW and ETH proof of work. So there too, the T-share scarcity, it could get to a point where we realize it's extremely difficult to obtain one whole T-share. Therefore, it would make people more likely to hodl their shit, because in the early phases, if you have a huge bag and you are. It's hard to explain that because everyone has a different, everyone has a different bag. So if you have a very small amount and you sort of, aren't really keen in locking it away because you're not sure what it is doing and the price is going down, it's making you upset. If later on though you realize that that small stake is mainly for the T-share, because the T-share gives you that daily yield payout, and even though you don't get it paid out into like an account that you can actually access it, it's at the when you no longer have that T-share, you'll notice, because you literally mint your new HEX, inflate the overall supply of HEX, and then you will make it then harder on yourself to get more T-shares because you've done that. It's just the way it is, which is the absolute mind fuck. I'm going to call it mind fuck. that is this system, because I want to see that the maths behind it is intriguing. It's absolutely intriguing. Now, this has been said many times before, and I'm going over some old stuff, and some people might present a lot better, but I just thought I'll put my take on it, right? Now, another event on price, I think, which would be a major event, would be if somehow, miraculously, everyone locked, even locked as in burnt all the HEX. And if they burnt all the HEX and was holding T-shares, there'll be more T-shares in existence, technically. And that would make the entire system extremely volatile in terms of price movement. But if it was entirely locked, the assumption is that people like HEX and they like T-shares because, they burnt their HEX and then they are going to get more HEX later on in the future. And while they're waiting for their more HEX, they're holding their T-shares, and the T-shares are the things that are giving you more HEX. And that's why I think the combination of the top two things will take place. Again, you could look at LPs. It becomes extremely volatile. We all saw, I think ages ago, there was a trade or something, and there was like $1 in LP pool when it tried to trade through, and it basically just wrecked someone because they tried to get like $1 million out, 100K, I can't remember, and it ended up being like they got $1 worth of value. I don't know how the LP pool did it. It traded back and forth with itself until it got like $1. So I don't think that's gonna work. What I mean by that is I don't think, if there's $1 worth of LP that you can then somehow miraculously take out $1 billion. LP pools do matter. But if everything is locked, except for, I guess there has to be some LP pools, or when the HEX comes out, LP pools are created, it's absolutely mind-blowing. I'll call it mind-blowing, mind-bending, because keeps swear words out of it. Yeah. Now, another huge event could be if for some reason, but this can't take place until year 15. But even then, I'm pretty sure other people are putting away other 555s, whether it be on HEX or through HSIs. But I say that though, technically you could bring into the system the HSIs and the ability to trade them, but I won't go there yet because that is almost like a bond market. Now, 100% liquid, right? So if every single stake was never entered back into the system of HEX, whichever system it is on, that's what I mean by 100% liquid. The assumption there would be everyone is selling. There'd be cheap HEX, and that would make the price go down. That's why I say cheap HEX. Now, excuse me, I did that backwards. There's another assumption though. If for some reason you had 100% liquid, you could then also, there could be an assumption that everyone's just holding it, and in that case price would be neutral because it's not actually being sold, which is fascinating to think about, because what would that mean for the system if there was no stakes in the system at all, and the T shares that is the rare thing, provides the scarcity, weren't in existence because there was no stakes? Like, what does that do to the system? That would maintain the system in a certain state, because there wouldn't be any more HEX being produced, and then there wouldn't be any more, like, no one would be holding T shares. That would be fascinating. But then imagine if that situation took place and then 100% got, and then T-share scarcity would kick in, But yeah, you could play around with those three, and anywhere in between. That's about it. But like I said, I would love to see the mathematics on this, because it's an absolute mind-bending way to view cryptocurrency. Because like I said, all of this is on chain. All of this allows you to track and trace what is going on. So beyond just buy sells, it's the actual entire system that is reacting to those buy and sells. Yes, there's LP as well, but if you go back to here, and have a look at what, if I can get the right file to respond, and then go back to the analysis of, two individuals in the system and what they could be doing, it would get very complex very quick, because if you were analyzing this and then you applied the amount of stakers and in the amount of wallets that there are, and applying a line like this, everyone's staking ladder. Imagine the staking ladder, and then applying, what everyone's doing, and then you can see what the price is doing, but then there'll be another calculation going on in the background, the ratcheting effect of the T shares every time HEX is burnt, T shares every time HEX is minted, T shares. What effect is that having? What's it going to do in the future? And what point in the future are you going to reach? Because that is what ultimately all of the decisions that we make now are technically changing the future in terms of the HEX price and the HEX ecosphere, depending on what chain you're looking at. Absolutely mind-bending. That is about it. Pulse chain up 11.5%, not bad. The hexes are down a little bit, so maybe it doesn't appear as if the MP3 file on the HEX News had any effect on the price whatsoever. So again, it's purely the community of a bunch of A and Bs affecting this system, because this thing's live, this thing's been released into the wild, and yeah, it's immutable. What else I want to bring up? So back to this one here. If I think I mentioned it, but you can imagine the old saying that if you make your token, and I can't remember, you make like 1 million of them, buy and trade one for $1, all of a sudden they're all worth $1 million. It's increased the LP. Whether or not, as I said before, trying to withdraw that with that existing LP, most likely you're only getting $1 out. But in a system like HEX, with the T shares that are scarce, and with the HEX that's inflating, it's absolutely mind-bending to see it play out. Like I said, I honestly think it's almost two forces cancelling each other out, but then the ability to ratchet up each time, even with a sell. So what I'm trying to visualize here is, as supply is increasing, it could be increasing thanks to the T-share mechanism. I'm not sure because I can't see the maths. But it could be increasing ever so slightly. As it increases ever so slightly and there's a sell put in place, it drops the price back down. But because the overall supply is increasing at a certain rate in line with T-shares, and that mechanism that is balancing the whole system, it could be allowing for the system to be slowly creeping up. However, like I said, I need to see the maths because this is very interesting. And for some reason, if someone's told you Hex is a scam, I hope they came with some reasons as to why. Because based on the assumption that it is a scam, would not the price all be at zero right now, like actual zero? Fact is, I think people have, if they've been locked away, I think they have more Hex than ever. And yeah, so take that for what it's worth. I also think there's a lot of people in a lot of profit. And like I said, as the current system currently exists, I can see, excuse me, if you put in 1,000 US dollars and actually, actually locked it away and actually got some T-shares, you could play around and see what happens over time. You can decide, you can literally run your own code now on your desktop, and tell yourself, your future self, how much Hex you want to have. You could base an assumption on the price is stable as it is now. You could base the assumption on price might decrease by 10, 20, 30%. How much do I need to maintain to keep up with inflation? Or you might want to do some moon maths and go, well, it's going to 100x, it's going to 100% increase, 200% increase over 1, 2, or 3 years. But yeah. Again, not financial advice, but it wasn't because no one asked. All right, peace, signing out. Hopefully that made sense. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But I've been watching this system for a little bit now, and I just, like I said, it's a mind bending exercise in freedom, because this could, hopefully, if we see all-time highs again, etc., etc. The weirdest thing, I had a dream, right, that I can't remember what it was. I had a dream someone sent me like 10 grand, and the first thing I did, I woke up and I sprinted to my computer and I was about to sell it, and then I went, hang on, if I sell this shit, what the fuck is it going to do to the price? And then because I didn't sell it, I was watching the price decrease in real time, and then I woke up, and then my dog was barking at the TV because I heard German Shepherd. It was the fucking weirdest dream. But yeah, no idea why. I can't remember why the price spiked to 10 cents either. I can't remember. It was very strange. But yeah, so yeah. I want to keep going, but I honestly think the mathematics is quite impressive. Because like I said, supply is increasing. At the same time, T-shares are becoming more scarce. T-shares dictate how much Hex exists in the future. As stakes end, there's also penalties paid out to those staking. Yeah. I wonder if you could someone could actually do the mathematics behind it and say, based on every single transaction that takes place, this will be the actual price at the time that the stake ends. When the stake ends, if they do this, the price will do this. If they do this, the price will do this. If this happens anywhere between, you can calculate. You then have to overlay that onto every single staker and onto every single holder, and you could potentially see what the price will do. And the problem with that would be, you can't tell if someone's you can tell if someone's going to exit the system, but you can't tell if anyone's entering into the system. And like I said, this system appears to be as if it is optimized for minimum injections in to result in something that constantly increases, whilst the thing that produces the thing that constantly increases is decreasing. Whoa, mind blowing. But yeah. Trying to think what else. That's about it. That is about it. It exists on Pulse Chain. It's extremely cheap to function. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. All right, free speech, signing out.